94 by 50 podcast. I'm your host, Ilyas Kurbanov. Today, none other than Gabe Riche on the podcast, the Dynasty Elite. Now, Iowa United apparently relocating from Quebec to the south of the border down to Iowa. It will be a hell of a transition, I'm sure, for Gabe and the crew down in Quebec. But outside of that, Gabe, man, don't let this guy fool you. One of the quickest first steps I've ever seen in my life. One of the most athletic players I've seen out there, who's all about his craft, and I'm sure his players are just the same way. Because I know, I remember the demands. Because it was once upon a time I was in their shoes. But without further ado, Gabe Riche, welcome to the pod, my friend.
Hey, Ilya, appreciate you having me, man. Lord knows we go way back.
Way back. Honestly, those Concordia 6 a.m. days,
Yep.
I don't, I miss it, but I don't miss it. I'll put it this way. I miss it because I miss basketball. I miss competitive basketball, but
Hey,
I don't miss it because it was some work. It was some work,
yeah,
to be fair.
it was
Man,
work.
how you
It was
been?
work.
How you been first and foremost?
Man, life is great. Life is beautiful. I can't complain.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Before we get into all the Iowa prep stuff, let's getting to know you. I know a few people that are in the basketball world, maybe out in Montreal or just in Canada, and they know exactly who you are. They know where you've been to, what you've been up to the last couple of years, and I know obviously following you and everything that from day one at Champlain and now obviously working with Iowa United. Tell the community a little about yourself, man.
Man, Gabe Riche, yours truly. Um, you know, played my CJET days at Champlain, which is actually how me and Ilya met. After my playing, I did a little bit of coaching there, and um, that's where I actually got my coaching started. Um, After Champlain, played at Concordia, then went overseas, did a bunch of 3-on-3 stuff, um, and then came back during COVID. Actually, that's a whole story in and of itself, but came back during COVID. Um, did an AD job for a few years, left that to much to the despair of my mom, who was very happy to see me as an athletic director, stable job, leaving that to go with Dynasty. But over the past year, got to work with the Dynasty crew, and now is on to bigger and better things with Iowa United Prep. So a quick resume of yeah, quick summary of my resume. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I still hoop. I still hoop. I still get in runs when I get a chance. I still play ones when I get a chance. Stay in shape. The love of the game never dies, but it's mostly done as a coach now. So yeah,
There's different ways of expressing love. I'll tell you that.
yeah,
You've been around the game for long enough, and the passion for the game this guy has, Lord, I promise you, every single person in the gym would hear this guy yelling across the court, and not yelling like negatively, but just like motivating the guys, saying like, "Yo, you guys are the ones. Like, you got this. Like, dictate the pace of the game." And all these. I've seen a few social media clips, but I know you. Like, I know
yeah,
this is how you are. Like, even back in the days when Kev and I, shout out to my guy Kev Buckuma Sayers, we used to be in the trenches together, coming in, working out with you every single morning, and it'd be the exact same way. Like, there's nobody in the gym. Who is he yelling at? What
yeah,
is he yelling for? But
yeah,
we got better. We got
yeah,
better,
man.
So shout out.
And
To be
just
honest, yo, shout out to you for that. Cause like outside of my game, outside of Kev's game, I think the passion you display for basketball and the passion that you hopefully, some guys can take that away from you, it goes a long way. Love for the game, like it's not just like within the 94 by 50, not within just like the dimensions of a basketball court, but it goes beyond that. Life, school, business, whatever they go on to do after basketball, if they don't
hmm
end up playing further. So shout out to you for that, because I think instilling that in some of these kids' minds, it goes a long way, man.
Hey man, I appreciate you for that. Couple things. First of all, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So the reason why that passion on the court is there is because we all just want to lead good lives, right? And so learning to give 100% on the court, you do the same thing in life, you'll be okay. And you say shout out me for the 6 a.m. workouts. Shout out you guys, man. Never showed up late once, always put in the work, never complained. Made you guys do some crazy stuff, but you put up through it. Made me a better coach, a better trainer, and yeah, you eat, I eat relationships. So yeah, I appreciate you, Ilya. Hell
I
yeah,
I appreciate you, my guy. It's
yeah.
legit. We go way back. I remember the first time I asked you to do the podcast. This guy had the audacity to say, "Hey, man, I don't think I know enough basketball or about basketball that I could speak on. I'm not an expert." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Oh man,
Man, but you know what? So, sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but just
no, you're
on that,
good.
Ilya, um, eh, coaching really does something to you. It opens your eyes. It shows you the game that you've played your whole life, that you've loved your whole life. You look at it from a different perspective, and all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, I really know nothing. You know what I mean? And it's like that in life. Like, yeah, if you scratch the surface on something, cool, like, yeah, okay, I get it, I get the concept, but once you really dive deep, you understand, like, oh, there's levels to this, and I gotta grow. So that's kind of why it took so long for us to finally get here. Is I had to do a little bit more diving, a little bit more digging before I came on here and started talking hoops with the realest of them.
I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Um, when you talk about, like you said, you scratched the surface upon starting your coaching career. Obviously, you've played for a number of years, like
Hmm.
Concordia, Champlain. You say playing FIBA 3-on-3 in Thailand. You've been around the game of basketball for a long time. Like that's excluding all the AAU stuff that you've done when you were younger. Like,
Hmm.
but scratching the coaching surface of the game of basketball, what was the biggest revelation you would say from that moment where you realized, like you said, like you don't know much about the game that you thought you would?
Man, all right, here's how it goes, okay? Uh, my first year coaching you guys with Dan Martin, who everybody knows and loves. Um, Dan is sitting there talking to me about the offense, and he might as well have been talking to a brick wall. I had no idea what the man was talking about. I'm sitting there like, oh yeah, okay, cool, yeah, I get it. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, we're going. No clue. And he's just like he's seeing everything. You know what I mean? Like he could see. I could tell. Like when you talk to somebody who knows what they're doing, they're talking about their offense, and they're like, okay, boom, boom, he's gonna cut here. We're gonna go pistol action, then off the flare, we're gonna. They just know everything they're doing, right? And it's like it's effortless. That's how Dan was, and just keeping up with him was like I felt like I was in the Matrix, man. I had never been there before, so that was really like my welcome to the game moment, understanding like, oh, it's guys who have been doing this for a long time and who like it's different, and I still believed in myself. I still thought, yeah, okay, I could be a good coach. I just knew I had a long way to go. I had a lot of learning to do. And that was a humbling moment. That was a real humbling moment, but I'm glad I lived that.
That's crazy enough. It's like Dan's offense. Man, I remember when I was there, we had like 20 something plays, bro. Like, don't get me wrong. Like most of those plays, it's like, it's kind of like a read based off the defender's action,
Yeah.
like how he defends the screen, where they sliding, like, attacking the specific gap somewhere. But it's like, man, it's like nobody, like half those guys are not gonna do that. And
Yeah.
then you think they won't. Next thing you know, you're in the game, you're watching. Obviously, I didn't get the chance to play when I was there, but like I've witnessed everything first, like through
Yeah.
like that
Yeah. Yeah.
first person view, like
No,
being
but you
out
was there.
there.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. So it's like you see and like, okay, these guys, okay, Nikki, like, oh, they giving him the left, but he's like lefty. Like, what are we doing here? It's like
Hmm.
you start recognizing those things and you see how like players react to those situations. But I think having those 20 some plays could potentially bring you to the situation where you'll have to make a different read just based on, well, they definitely scouted the plays. They know exactly how to defend that
Hmm.
screen and whatever. So you have to be able to read and react and kind of pivot to the next action. Um,
Hmm.
how do you find that, like as a coach now yourself, how do you find that teaching, like obviously us, we're probably around the same age that your players are, like around 17, maybe a little bit older, but then you were obviously in a university setting, you played through university.
Hmm.
How do you find teaching that type of aspect, being able to read the play and going into next?
Well, again, like going back to Dan, I'm lucky that I got to do it under him for a little while because he had to take the heat, right? I got to do it from the passenger seat and really soak it all in and learn. And I think that that's where the real challenge comes is like, how good of a teacher are you, right? Like, how well are you able to not only explain the concepts that you're trying to teach and the reads that you're trying to teach? Most importantly, that's the hard one to teach is the reads that you're trying to teach, but how how much are you able to adapt to your players and speak the language that they speak so that they can understand? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to achieve, right? You're trying to get them to really, oh, that's what coach is talking about, right? So how can I adapt my language? How can I adapt my teaching methods? How can I make sure that the guys that I'm coaching, they get all the juice that they need from what I'm trying to say? And at the end of the day, the message is conveyed. So that to me is the real challenge. Now, how do I find it? Difficult. We're talking basketball, right? So it's personalities, and that's the biggest thing you got to remember. We're not dealing with robots. We're dealing with humans, right? And so the same way that you got a one kid who you could put him in timeout, and it's a joke to him. The next kid you'll put him in timeout in the corner, and it's the end of the world. He's crying his eyes out, and he doesn't. Well, it's the same thing in basketball. Like, not everything that you say is going to be heard the same way. Not everybody's at the same level of understanding. So, how do you manage your team so that the unit as well as the individuals are both doing this towards the common goal, right? So, yeah, anybody who's had the chance to coach for a full season, they'll tell you, man, it's a journey. It's a learning journey, and to not to ramble, but kind of on that topic, that's what it was for me this year. It was like a big year of like I had some stuff figured out and I knew what I was doing, but in the process of teaching them, I myself had an incredible experience learning, an incredible learning experience. So yeah, and I think, sorry, again, a little tangent, but earlier we were talking
You
about
good, kid, man. Stage is yours, brother. You sharing the stories. I love that. I love that.
but earlier we were talking about a growth mindset, right? And I think that's what separates the good coaches from the great coaches. Like, how much are you able to continue learning, right? Like I look at guys like Mike Schmilevsky from Brebeuf, and I don't even like me and Mike have a good relationship, like each other, cool, but like it's the stories that Inti tells me about him watching hour and a half FIBA seminars on YouTube, and every year you look at Brebeuf and you're like, how do they do it, And like he watching him grow as a coach, to me that's kind of a great example of somebody who takes their craft seriously and who has a growth mindset and who just continuously levels up, right? So yeah, as a coach you got to be the number one learner on your team.
Now, you said that the biggest thing is like everyone needs a different approach. Like, and that's obvious. Like, not everyone is going to hear you the same way. People need to be spoken to a certain way just to get the message across, because it could be challenging. You never know what players could be dealing with. Like, some kids got
Hmm.
ADHD, some people are just like, a little hot-headed. You see it a lot in sports in general, not just basketball. It's like
Hmm.
very, very common thing. And there are players that will be understanding and will be easily attentive to the what you're saying, regardless of how you deliver it, because it'll be like the mindset is like, okay, I'm here to work, I'm here to get better, I'm here to like listen and stuff like that, so it's like easy. What is like the biggest challenge, finding that gap with players? Like, making sure you deliver the message a certain way that they will be not only be able to understand it, but also retain that piece of information for the longer run?
You got to know your guys, and that's the biggest thing. You got to know your guys. You got to know their trigger points, and this is kind of like the another part of learning and growth mindset, right? Like if I come in and I'm like, yo, it's my way or the highway, then a lot of guys are going to fall off the wagon, right? And now, but the delicate balance of like the standard is the standard, right? There's certain things that are non-negotiables, and then okay, where do I give some grace to certain guys, and where do I see okay, this is going to be a harder area for this person, this is going to be a harder area for that person, they're going to do much better over here, so don't necessarily reward them every time they do that. You know what I mean? Like getting back to it is really just get to learn your guys, get to know your guys inside out, and then you'll be able to bridge that gap more successfully.
Now, off the podcast, before we started, you mentioned that you hopped on that dynasty team. Took on the challenge, trying to
Hmm.
obviously get the kids better opportunities, give them the most everything you can as a coach of the program. Ever since you stepped on those shoes, what was it like from the beginning? I know you guys are relocating now to Iowa. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but what was the transition like? Because you obviously stepped away from Champlain as an assistant and then jumped in this transition to becoming a head coach of a program.
I'm gonna tell you the truth, man. It was everything I ever wanted. I'm gonna be honest. Like as a young kid, I was my dream. Once I understood I wasn't making the NBA, that I wasn't gonna get cash like that. My dream was really to help give back um, some of what the game gave to me. You know what I mean? I think the game's been good to me. The game's really affected my life in a positive way, and my goal was just to give that back to young men who look like me, who have similar aspirations as me. And so stepping into Dynasty, where we got like, you want to talk about culture and environment, we have a group of 12 guys who want to work, who want to get better. We had a breakfast club and a night club where guys are coming in to put up extra shots. And like this is not me like you have to do it. Obviously put a little pressure. You know how we do, but we have a group of guys, 9 guys who at a certain point it was 9 guys who are coming in, who are putting extra shots up, who are doing the extra work. So getting to work with young guys like that, it was a blessing. And to tell you the truth, I got to give a lot of credit to the guys who came before me and who helped lay the foundation because they went through the brickwork, right? Guys like Kemi, guys like Chris Joe, Jonathan Mirambeau, who is a pillar of Dynasty. Like those guys came, and there's a bunch of others, but obviously can't forget Alex Victor, the founder, um, the man with the most courage I ever seen, and the most resilience I ever seen. Um, but those guys, Pierre Cassius, who came through and set the culture. Like there's guys who came in the past and who really laid the groundwork so that I could come in this year and really enjoy a group of guys that have good culture, that have incredible work ethic and desire, and in French we say du vouloir, to go to the next level. So yeah, man, like not to say we didn't have our bumps and bruises and that it was all fun and roses the whole way, but for me this is exactly the environment that I wanted. And so the transition from a very stable job in an environment that I truly enjoyed also, but the transition from a job that was stable and that I enjoyed to my passion, I do it anytime, man. I do it anytime.
Again, you're watching the 94 by 50 podcast by Ilyas Kurbanov. Alongside me is Gabe Riche, my brother, my
So
friend, basketball connoisseur, expert coach, friend,
yeah.
you call it. Now, you said that once you'd realized that you were done playing, like coaching was always the route you were going to take. Like that was set in stone.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Like when I was younger, I, when you know how it is when we're young, we're just trying to figure out life, right? And I had taken on a bunch of different ventures. I was interested in business. I thought teaching could be some just because of the seasonal schedule, right? Um, when I was young, my original goal was I was going to teach and I was going to run a landscaping company in the summer to offer my players some employment and be able to continue being involved in their lives despite the summer schedule, right? So I thought I had it all figured out. I started a little landscaping company when I was 24, 25, something like that. Um, that didn't work. Uh, but but my goal was, yes, to get back to it. It was always coaching. I always wanted to come back to the game. I always wanted to be in that space where I'm still involved in the game. I'm helping lead young guys who want to make something of themselves with this game, you know. So yeah, coaching was always in the books.
Funny enough, like the amount of times when I was done at Champlain and we had like the exit meetings and whatever, and Dan is like, Ilya, you should coach. I'm like, no chance. No, like, don't get me wrong. Like, as a basketball player and like as a basketball connoisseur, like I know a little bit about, like I know enough about the game that I could probably give back and be able to learn along the way and find a way like to make it something good. But man, I don't think I have enough patience and willpower to have those sleepless nights watching endless amount of film. Like like I promise you, whenever I was playing and I had to watch film on me, no problem. I'll go sit down. Okay, I did this right there. Or
Hmm.
second quarter, or I missed the assignment right there. I should have made the rotation. So like that was interesting because I wanted to get myself on the court the next game regardless. I wanted to play as many minutes as I
Hmm.
possibly could. I wanted to get back in the gym and work on the things that weren't working in the game or something that didn't go well in practice. But watching film of, we'll say playoffs, come playoffs time, it's like about 8 players that get to play.
Hmm.
Watching
Hmm.
film on the entire opposition, because you don't know who they're gonna bring in, whatever. You gotta be ready for everything. And then watching film on the 8 guys that you have on the court that made hundreds of mistakes in the game.
Yep.
Like, no. Like I plead the fifth. I rest my case. I'm out. Like, and I know that the higher the level, you'll have all these like specialists, like your assistant coaches that will be like responsible. But that's the groundwork you got to do. And film is, I can't do it. I genuinely,
Hey,
I cannot do it.
I'm gonna tell you what, man. I think certain things are an acquired taste. Film is one of those things. You know, when I was young, when I was a player, I actually that was one of the things I struggled with the most was watching film and being serious about it. But in my coaching career, that's one of the first things that I really dove into was, yeah, learning film, because that's the best, to me, that's the easiest way to learn a game. When you're coaching from the sideline, if you have a certain angle, right? But that bird's eye view behind the camera, yeah, there's no lying there. There's no lying there. So I might have an argument with a player where I'm like, "You're supposed to cut," and he's like, "I did cut," and I'm like, "No, you didn't." Now we go back to the film, and men lie, women lie. Film don't. But just quick. I think you would have made an excellent coach, Ilya, because you're passionate. No, I'm serious, man. And like, you anybody who knows you knows how much you put into this game, knows how much heart, effort, passion you put into this game, and that's half of what goes into coaching is being able to transmit that into your kids. Now, obviously, I think that like any other job, coaching has its pros and it has its cons. After a tough loss, not being able to sleep, it's 2:30 in the morning, and it's just you and that laptop and that sorry half empty glass. Yeah, it's not for everybody, but the game needs people like you. There's bit of a side quest. My sister directs a company excuse me, a nonprofit in Toronto called Layup, and they service, I believe, 1,500 kids in the GTA. where they provide after school activities centered around basketball in underserved communities, right? And they do so much research, and I don't want to butcher their numbers, so I won't. Don't quote me directly, but it's like the access to sport, the access to basketball that we think you just need a hoop and a rim. Like most of the kids who play don't get coaches, right? And we all remember a one or two coach that we had when we were young, where we're like, I don't know if he knew what he was talking about, right? So having quality people who aren't just volunteers, who never played before, who just want to help out because of their kids, which we appreciate you guys too, but having qualified people who played, you played at Champlain, you played at UKC, so you did your time. You know what the game is like. You know what these kids are feeling. You know what challenges they might have. The game needs people like you, man. I'm not calling you Batman. I'm just saying.
Nah, man, I appreciate it. I genuinely do. That's a compliment that I'll
Uh,
definitely I'll store it in my heart for a little bit, you know? Oh man, it's funny. Like, nah, I've had coaches say like tell me like I should. And the bottom line, yeah, like I'm in love with the other side of the game. You know, being on the mic and having the really the fortune to sit down and analyze the game as it's happening before my eyes and you
hmm
know like the same way, some game-winning threes, some incredible dunks go up. I'm reacting the same way as if I'm a fan of the
hmm
game, but it's
hmm
just now you have to put it into words and you craft it and make a little piece of art out of it. But I mean, maybe someday just like help out somewhere. Like you said, like volunteer a little bit of my time to give back to the kids that might appreciate it. But I'm always good. I go to the runs out here. I see some young
hmm
kids, and I give everything I can back, or I'll make sure I compete against them the same way if I was playing against you or
Yes,
anybody
sir.
else.
Yes,
So
sir.
they could see the level of competitiveness and maybe at least take that away. You know.
I'll tell you what. If we need a video coordinator next year, I'll put your name in the ballot. All
Sounds good.
right.
I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Now you guys relocating obviously to Iowa, like you mentioned.
hmm
What's that transition been like in terms of not just logistics? Obviously, I've seen the incredible facility you guys got. I might need one of those ice baths in my home. Can you hook me up? Uh, I think after those runs, the open runs, we need recovery too.
I'll see what I can do, man. If the 9450 podcast wants to do a couple episodes on Iowa United, we there might be a little something in it for you. But talking about the transition, man. First things first. I want to go top down on this. I gotta shout out our investor, man. And he's more than an investor. I got the chance to spend a month with him in Iowa during the month of May, and just like those too good to be true scenarios. Like he's a genuine person. He's tough. He's no punk. He's no chump. He's a tough person, but just like a genuinely good person wants to do what's best for the kids. Like his real vested interest is just having the best program in the country, and that's it, right? We want to help every kid get a scholarship, and we want to be the best in the country, and like I'm very, very grateful, thankful that he came in our program's life, in our lives. Um, but yeah, he's making that transition pretty smooth. The facility that we're going into is second to none. You could put us in the same class as, I'm not gonna go ahead and say the IMGs, but yeah, pretty much. You know what I mean? And so that transition is smooth. Alex, the founder of our program, when I tell you somebody who's like integrity is the one word to describe him, is integrity, man. Like he vouched for me, like, to the end. You know what I mean? And not only did he vouch for me, but we also have our assistant coach coming out, Inti, who anybody who's been around our program knows how valuable Inti is to our program. Like you talk about film, he lives for film. You know what I mean? And his approach to player development is unique, but incredibly efficient. Like there's dozens and dozens of high level players who can vouch for Indy. So, being able to continue with our full staff, keep the majority of our core of players, and just take that into bigger and better facilities. Yeah, man, we really can't complain. We haven't even moved out yet, but everybody's just itching and scratching and just anxious to get out there. So yeah, transition is smooth. Sad to leave, sad to leave Montreal behind. Very sad. We all got friends, families, girlfriends, call it what you want. Um, but we are moving into a phase of this program's life that is going down in the history books, man. So yeah,
So
we're excited.
that's what I like to hear. And leaving people behind, sacrifices need to be made. We've all been there. I'm sure when you played, you had to leave things behind. When I played, uh, sometimes haven't seen the light of day outside of the gym and practices in school and work.
Mm-hmm.
It would be just
Mm-hmm.
like the same routine every single day, and people are like, "Yeah, it's okay. You could skip one practice." Nah, it's like
Nope.
you guys didn't understand. It's like it's all we lived. That's all we had. It's like the game, the gym, and
Yeah.
like everything that happened in those four walls and like on the basketball court. It's like that's all we knew at the
Yeah.
very least at the time. But now with the players that you guys have and the team in Iowa, what is that going to look like? What's the competition like for those who might not know how prep basketball works out in the States?
So we have three leagues that we're competing in right now. We are officially in the grind session, EIBC, and the NPA. So EIBC and grind session are two American leagues. I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with the grind session. EIBC is a Southwest league. We play competitions in LA, Vegas, Phoenix, Denver, if I'm not mistaken, New Mexico, Iowa. There's a bunch of different sessions, right? And so to explain the format a little bit, in the grind session is the same thing. You attend different sessions and then you play your games. You finish the season with about 20-ish games in your league, and then you move on to playoffs based on your ranking, right? So grind session is probably is known to be the most competitive. EIBC, I could tell you from playing in it last year, there's some real teams in there. Utah Prep being one of them with JJ Mandequit, AJ DeBanza, and you guys won't know the rest of their players, but they are not to be played with, right? So there's some serious teams in that circuit. And then NPA, which Tarek and Ilyas have done an incredible job of building up. They're branching out into the States now. So we're actually going to be hosting a session this year with the NPA. So yeah, those three leagues. Excuse me, rambling a little bit, but those three leagues are the ones we're going to be playing in. We also do a lot of events. So we're doing Border League, which is one of the top recruiting events in preseason. So far, we're in the Tarkanian, so we're supposed to be playing there. Yeah, I'm forgetting a few, but we do these exclusive events where we just look to give opportunities to our guys, man. It's exhibition games, but we all know what that means, right? So yeah,
Exhibition playoffs, friendlies,
it's
outdoors in the park.
yep, yep,
If you're not
yep,
competing, don't show up. I mean, you could have fun.
yep,
You could have fun. That's the best part of the game, but you have to
yeah,
be able to compete.
yeah.
So now you will be playing in those competitions and obviously like you said, like hosting different training sessions that will be
Hmm.
part of the entire recruitment process for your players. Um, now what was it like, when you obviously understood that you were being bought out and brought into another country for majority of the players. Like we mentioned, the sacrifices are to be made. But what was the initial reaction for not just you, but like the whole program, excluding obviously the board of like directors and the founder, Alex? What was it like for players' families? What was the initial response when you able to get that going?
Uh, I don't want to speak necessarily on behalf of the players. What I observed is everybody's excited. You know, people had questions like, "Yo, are we getting recruited over? Are we get like what's happening? Is the team staying together?" Like, but it was very clear from the get go to our guys. Like when we announced it after the national championship, it was, "Yo, we are moving as a unit to Iowa United," and so everybody was pretty excited because those who know. We've been in the trenches for the last little while, for the last 5 years, in fact. Obviously, so many incredible memories here, but our gym is not regulation size. We have two rims to practice on. We have a weight room that you know, yeah, we had a weight room. You know what I mean? So it's like we don't come from the glitz and the glam. So now when we show the guys that video and it's like, yo, this is what it's about to be for us. Everybody was like, okay, like if we were able to do this with what we had now, imagine what we'll be able to do with the proper resources and support and staff, and you know what I mean. So the players are all excited, man. The guys are all excited. They're excited to take a step to the next level in terms of the competition we're going to be playing. They're excited to get to, obviously, for the facility and for the new life. But I think everybody's pretty amped to just be able to focus entirely on being the best version of ourselves out there.
Gabe Riche from Iowa United. Myself, Ilyas Kurbanov. You again watching the 94 by 50 podcast. Thanks for joining in, and thank you if you will be watching later and listening to it eventually on other platforms. Like I said, work is being done in the back, but we're not going to talk about this. Um, it's a conversation for another time. So, being in this position now, you go in Iowa. What do yourself look most forward to? Because obviously you've seen the facilities. I've seen it based on what you were able to share with me. Um, what are you looking forward to? What are your goals? And how is the recruiting going to work now? Are you going to be still trying to get more opportunities to the players that will be based out of Quebec, or will you be branching out and go into other areas of Canada and perhaps some players from the States, or is it just going to be same idea as what it was before?
So just breaking it down, I think the thing I'm most excited for is just to get after it, man. Me and Inti have been brainstorming and chopping it up all summer. We talk about those hour and a half FIBA podcasts. We've been on those. We've been just really trying to mastermind the best systems for our team to succeed. More importantly, we've been really focused on the player development and how we're going to grow our guys and make sure that they reach their maximum potential. So we have a whole document on player weaknesses, player strengths, player pathway, NBA comps, tips that they can take. We also have very, very capable strength and conditioning coaches in D1 training that are going to be joining us and running the strength and conditioning for our guys. We have incredible recovery facilities. We have a team doctor who's I've personally witnessed do magic. So just having the infrastructure, and resources to match our players' talent is really what I'm looking forward to, and just getting after it. In terms of recruitment, obviously, we have a lot of connections in Quebec, and so we're looking to utilize those to try and get the best players. Um, One of the program's mandates is to bring 1,001 young Africans to North America uh, through basketball, right? And so mixing those two, our recruitment does continue to come somewhat from Africa. It's gonna remain somewhat from Canada, and now we're gonna be able to incorporate the states in there, which actually fits some of the program's credo is unite, develop, and achieve, right? So we're uniting talent from really across the world right now. So that's where our recruitment is coming from. Really and truly, we're looking for the best player. Not only the best players, we're looking for the best young human beings to come to this environment, to this culture, lay it all on the line, sacrifice, and become the best versions of themselves.
Recruiting from Africa, what's the biggest challenge bringing, players from?
Visas. No, visas for sure. I say it jokingly, but the paperwork um, is always a bit of a challenge. Which Alex is a magician, and he makes things happen. Um, but I think overall the biggest challenge bringing talent here is that you don't always get to see it, right? So you got to go off word of mouth. Now we're lucky; we have incredible guys out there. Coach Cassé, who I forgot to mention earlier, but is also a pillar of our program. He's in Guinea and a little bit more broadly in West Africa, but he's in Guinea. He's from Guinea, and he's our eyes and ears out there. We also have people who I'm not going to name everybody, but we have coaches in Africa who we trust, we have good relationships with, and who can make good recommendations for us. And then lastly, this year we had the incredible opportunity of going to Senegal for the NBA Africa Games, and that offered us the opportunity to see some of our young up and coming talent with our own eyes. So the real challenge, like I said, is it's a bit of a gamble because you're going off of word of mouth, but it's not really a challenge because we trust the people that we have out there. And Alex has been at this for 5 years now. He knows what he's doing.
Great stuff, man. You guys doing some amazing things, man. I'm happy for you, and I mean it genuinely,
Appreciate
because
you, man.
knowing the groundwork that you've put in as a player, knowing the groundwork that you've put in with not just Champlain, but now Dynasty and soon to be or already, Iowa United. It's gonna be something good to see. And knowing you, I know there's something up that sleeve, man.
Yes,
Like
sir.
we talked about the passion that you bring to the court as a player, as a coach, and I could see some great things coming, and I can't wait to follow you on that journey and your program as well. So we'll definitely keep our eyes on that. We'll get
Hey,
to the yeah. Go ahead.
no, just quick, because on with regards to that journey, man, I think like
Mhm.
I haven't mentioned our players, but I want to make sure that I do. We have a group of young leaders. We got six guys coming from Montreal, who are going to Iowa, and I couldn't speak more highly of them. You know what I mean? Like Arafan, who everybody knows, Khalil, who maybe not everybody knows, but everybody should know. Ben, Ibrahim Bassima, uh, Lamin, who's coming in from Africa now, who's a high level kid. Karim Keita, who hurt his knee, but has done so much growing. Gardijan, who Gardi's going to be a force in nature this year. You guys don't know yet, but 6'8", brolic, can move, skilled. He's gonna be a problem. But all of these kids, I am incredibly proud of, um, because they've sacrificed, they've accepted coaching, hard or or not, um, and they've all taken incredible steps as young men in their individual growing journey. And so, what they've been able to do with what we've had in the past, I can't wait to see what they do with what we have this year. But yeah, those are guys that you got to keep your eye on. I'm gonna be there. I'll be there. But the ones you really want to keep your eye on is those guys.
Oh, we're gonna see them too, man. I know
Yeah.
it's gonna be all over. It's gonna be all over social media, and hopefully, some
Yes,
of
sir.
those guys get some shine on
Yep.
local platforms, because I know a lot of times Canada does fail a little bit in terms of bringing light to some of these young talented athletes, men or women. And I think, there's a lot of work to be done, and hopefully, we'll get some Canadian guys dropping down to Iowa United and getting
Yes,
the
sir.
content and spreading the word to not just, the state's viewership, but also to us, who
Yes, sir.
definitely cherish the talent that we got. And it has come a long way. It has come a
Yep.
long way from who we were able to see back then, the likes of Steve Nash, Joel Anthony, Samuel Delambert. Like, there's so many names that paved the way for guys like Lou Dort, for guys like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, and the list goes on. We all know those guys, but then it also opened up way for the Prosper brothers and sisters. So they're doing their thing. Obviously, Max being in Dallas and his sister still being in Notre Dame.
Hmm.
So it's coming a long way, and I'm happy to see our game grow. Before we go, man, however, we will do a little segment that I call Into It. I'm gonna ask you a series of questions. They're legit questions, no joking around. No, I'm just playing. It's gonna be just rapid fire. It's like literally things you like, things you might not like. Dunks, whatever. You
I'm
name
rocking
it.
with it, man. Let's see it.
It's gonna be like a minute and a half. I'm gonna set the timer on. It's really not that crazy, to be honest. So don't overthink it. Um, so 1 second. You just go reset the stopwatch. All right, brother. You ready? You ready to get into it?
I'm here. I'm here.
All right. So starting now, who is your favorite player growing up?
Oh, LeBron.
Man, that was before you get out of here.
I'm
No, I'm
serious,
joking. I'm joking. I'm
LeBron.
joking. Coaching or playing? I think I know the answer, but
Oh man. It's tough. I gotta say coaching because I'm in it right now, man. That's it.
go-to meal before the game.
Couple hours before pasta. Yeah.
Would you rather have a poster dunk or a game-winning three?
Oh, game winning three.
Would you rather get dunked on or get crossed?
Crossed. Crossed.
Seriously, to be honest, I wouldn't care because it's like part of the game. But I
Yeah.
feel like, yeah, there's too much hype about dunks, being posted
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
social
yeah,
media
yeah, yeah,
nowadays. What was the favorite play? What was the favorite city you ever played in?
yeah. Manila.
Toughest player you ever had to guard?
Ooh, you have to give me a second for this one, but uh man, you know what? I gotta go. It's a real wild one, but Adrian Peterson from Jamba Wildcats when I was young. You guys probably don't even know this name, but dude was just tiny, like five, couldn't be more than 5'5". Sorry if I'm disrespecting you, dude, but he couldn't be more than 5'5", skinny dude, but just like ball on a string. And like I had never guarded somebody that fast and that with the ball, moving the ball that fast before. So yeah, probably him. Yeah, let's go with him for now. Let's go with him for now. There's a bunch of others, but yeah.
Two more questions now. College ball or NBA?
Recently, college ball. Yeah, but as a lifer, NBA. But
Uh,
recently, college ball.
And one last one. Who would be the best player that you had the chance to play with?
Play with.
Yeah.
Play with Mo Ager. Yeah, played for the Dallas Mavs, Minnesota Timberwolves, New Jersey Nets.
When did you
But
get to
yeah,
play with him?
when I was out in Asia, we did some
Oh,
time 3-on-3 together. Yeah,
oh,
he
that's
was a
sick.
little bit older. Yeah, he was a little bit older. But when he turned it on, man, you just saw flashes where you were like, oh, yeah, there's just really nothing you could do, you know? But yeah, he was good. There was a couple others too, man. There's a couple other great players I got the chance to play with. Um, I know I'm forgetting some, but off the top of my head, that's the most recent one. Call it a You're a victim of time.
Hey
Call the other
man,
ones victims of
t-
time.
to be honest with you, that's good for me. That's good for me.
Yes,
I would
sir.
say the best man when I played. Who would have been the best player? I think the most famous player now that I would have played against would be Dylan Brooks. That would
Played
have been.
against or played with?
No, I played against him.
Okay,
That
okay.
was like with CIA bounds, like way back, like
Mm-hmm.
2012. It was a kid that was just like he was bigger than everyone, so he was just kind of playing post. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really like the type of player we obviously see him to be today, but he was definitely like just as hyper, getting a
Yeah,
stop or like scoring on someone. He would just let you know, like how
yeah,
kind of how he is in the NBA, which is sick because he's unapologetic, and that's like the
yeah.
best way to play the game. Like, who cares who you play against?
Mm-hmm.
People try to bash him for kind of like poking the bear when he
Yeah.
was going at with LeBron. I'm like, that's
That's who
kind
he
of
is.
showing he's not a punk. He's not afraid to play
Yeah.
that type of game, and obviously it kind of came to bite him. But who cares?
He's going after one of the greatest of all times, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
by
So,
far. It's like
hey,
argument to be made for the greatest of all time, but that's all subjective. I'm not gonna share my my opinion on here. Um, to be fair, MJ, LeBron, they're both great in their own way, so
yeah,
we
yeah,
should stop arguing about that. So
yeah,
we'll give the LeBron fans, LeBron's the greatest. MJ fans, MJ's the greatest. Some will make a case for Magic and Bird, and the list. That list
yeah,
is long.
yeah,
Man, Gabe, one love. I genuinely appreciate you joining here today, talking about yourself, talking about Dynasty, now Iowa United. We haven't talked in such a long time, and still remember, like, I genuinely remember being on the phone with you. Like, I was in my mom's kitchen, and I was like, dude, like, I don't care if you don't know anything about basketball. You have so much you could share. And you're like, nah, man, I remember this conversation to this day.
yeah.
And dude, now a full circle moment. It was a pleasure having you, my friend. I genuinely appreciate it.
I can't say how happy I am to do this, man. Thank you, Ilya. Appreciate you.
To those who were able to watch us today live on stream, genuinely appreciate you all for the support, for the love that you've been showing over the now 2 years or so that I've been kind of working on this podcast. Obviously, it hasn't been as consistent as I wish it was, but as they say, the best way to get it done is to start it. So here I am back on my feet, and more things coming. You've been watching 94 by 50 podcast with Ilyas Kurbanov. Joined alongside me today was Gabe Riche. We'll be seeing you again. This will be uploaded soon on YouTube and soon to be on other podcast providers. Until then, just stay tuned. Keep following 94 by 50 podcast on all platforms: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. We'll see you soon. Until then, remember to always keep it simple.